What's up, Giants fans, Hub watchers, YouTube and Rumble subscribers, Twitter and Instagram followers? It's Kush back at it again with another Giants update video. This one's gonna be a little bit different from what we usually talk about. At least during this time of the year, we'd probably be talking about the offensive coordinator search since Ken Dorsey stayed up in Buffalo. The hire of Bobby Johnson, I believe his name is, our new offensive line coach, looking at Patrick Graham, who just finished a 9-hour interview with the Minnesota Vikings and actually looks to seem to have a good shot at that job, which if he leaves, we're going to have to find a new DC. Just a whole bunch of things, draft talk and whatnot. But it's a very serious topic that needs to be talked about regarding Brian Flores. Brian Flores is suing the NFL and some NFL teams, the Giants included, along with Miami Dolphins and Denver Broncos, for racial discrimination during his hiring process, and I'm assuming going down with what went down over in Miami with how he was fired. And so I could only speak upon the Giants' involvement in this, given that I kind of try my best to cover the Giants on this channel, and so I know more about them than any other team. Just kind of, that just makes sense. I will only kind of give my opinion on that. I can't speak too much on the Denver Broncos thing or the Miami Dolphins thing, just other than what information we already have on the situation. So I found an article for those of you, I guess, that don't know what's going on, but also just to help summarize the current state of affairs regarding Brian Flores and the NFL, and I'm going to read it to you guys. It is from CBS Local, a Boston site. I'm guessing just a Boston CBS news channel that did a pretty good job of recapping everything up until this point. Switch to this article here and let's get to reading it. It says Bill Belichick texted the wrong Brian to congratulate him for getting the Giants head coaching job, according to a lawsuit filed by former Dolphins head coach and former Patriots assistant coach Brian Flores. The lawsuit showed text messages of Belichick sending his congratulations to Flores for landing the Giants job on January 24th. That text was sent 2 days prior to Flores actually interviewing for the job. After Flores initially appeared confused by the text message, he asked Belichick, "Coach, are you talking to Brian Flores or Brian Dable? Just making sure." Belichick replied, "Sorry, I effed this up. I double-checked and misread the text. I think they are naming Dable. I'm sorry about that, BB." A day later, Flores told CNN that Bill Belichick did not know the texts were going to be used in a lawsuit and that the two have not spoken since the lawsuit was filed. Let me scroll down a little bit. The lawsuit alleges that Flores was then forced to sit through a dinner with Joe Schoen, the Giants' new general manager, and knowing that the Giants had already selected Mr. Dable. Much worse, on Thursday the 27th, Flores had to give an extensive interview for a job that he already knew he would not get. An interview that was held for no reason other than for the Giants to demonstrate falsely to the league commissioner Roger Goodell and at the public at large it was in compliance with the Rooney Rule. Flores, a native of Brooklyn, played college football at Boston College before joining the Patriots coaching staff in 2008. He remained there through the 2018 season when he departed to take over as the Dolphins head coach. Then we have a tweet from the firm representing him. In a humiliating act of alleged racism, Mr. Flores was forced to sit for an extensive interview knowing that the Giants had already chosen Brian Dable, a white man, for the job. Mr. Flores now brings this class action to effectuate. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Effectuate real change for the future. I think it's effectuate. Flores is represented by Wigdor Law. Below is a joint statement from the law firm. And I read the statement. It does basically just say they are proud to represent him and they hope that he has support along the way. And then it says the lawsuit explores the history of black coaches having a more difficult time getting and keeping head coaching jobs, using Flores' interview as an example of a black coach who did not have a real chance to earn the job. The Giants would likely have gotten away with this most insidious form of discrimination in the New England Patriots if New England Patriots coach Bill Belichick had not mistakenly disclosed to Flores the attached text messages. It added, this revelation not only impugns and viciously exposes the sham process to which Mr. Flores was subjected, but also stands to indict the Giants' organizational hiring practices in general. It is impossible to put into words the emotion Flores felt upon learning that not only he would be getting the Giants head coach job, the job of his dreams, but more importantly that he was not even given serious consideration for the position, but being treated as a box to check off due to his race. Mr. Flores spent Monday evening, Tuesday, and Wednesday, including the dinner with Mr. Shane, knowing that he was walking into Thursday's interview with no chance to become the Giants head coach. While he would spend countless hours preparing to put his best step forward, the white man across the table from him saw and heard only one thing, a formality that had to be observed in order to name Mr. Dable the head coach. And then it goes on to talk about the Dolphins and whatnot, and we will get to that in a second. But first, let me get back to Flores in relation to the Giants and say that his lawsuit against the Giants and Giants alone, in my opinion, doesn't hold up. What Flores and the law firm he's being represented by is trying to argue is that we used him to fulfill the Rooney Rule, even though we already fulfilled the Rooney Rule before we completed his second interview, right? We interviewed Leslie Frazier twice and Patrick Graham at least one time. I can't remember if it was twice or once before we completed the second interview with Brian Flores. Remember, when Joe Shane was hired, the very next day, he was hired on a Friday. I think it was either that Friday night or Saturday morning. He already scheduled interviews with the two Buffalo coordinators because he's been in direct contact with the two Buffalo coordinators. He has direct connections and relationships with them. Brian Dable, the offensive coordinator of Buffalo, Leslie Frazier, the defensive coordinator of Buffalo. They were the first two guys we interviewed. So it doesn't make sense that we use Brian Flores to check off that box that is the Rooney Rule if we already fulfilled it at the very beginning of the hiring process. And Frazier had a fair shot. Patrick Graham had a fair shot. And I do believe that Brian Flores had a fair shot. Now, Belichick texting him, mistakenly believing it was Dable and saying that congratulations for the job and whatnot. That is definitely, something to look into. But I don't think it holds weight in this context of this case that we're using Flores as a check box. Because I have even said on both of my podcasts that I feel like the Giants are conducting some sham interviews. This was more towards the GM search and the offensive coordinator search more than anything, because I said if they have somebody in mind already, what they're going to end up doing is, having interviews for the sake of having interviews to make it seem like a search. But that's kind of how it works in the NFL, right? You hire a new GM, they already have somebody in mind that they want. And if, I'm going to be honest with y'all, if Mara had his way, I don't know if we hire Brian Dable. We probably hire a guy like Flores, because Mara was the one that was interested in him. Shane was the one that was interested in Dable, right? And Flores suits that Giants of the Giants criteria of previous searches. Mostly a defensive guy, a guy that has connections through the Giants through Bill Belichick and the Patriots, more heavily so than Brian Dable does, and almost like a disciplinarian. I even made comparisons between Flores with Tom Coughlin. And this might get a little off topic here, but Flores does have a case to make, because I do believe there was a smear campaign against him, and I said this as well. A lot of stuff coming out from Miami, you gotta tell me that some of y'all felt like it was exaggerated, especially after, and this was something I definitely brought up on my couple podcasts, especially after we found out that little quote, and I'm putting quotation marks on that came out that said he talked to Tua in his face and told Tua he should have drafted Mac Jones. That came out and was proven false, like straight up false. That was falsified, that was made up, that was spread out there on the internet and the media to go all over the place, and it never happened. From that moment on, I feel like everybody should have known something fishy is going on with the way Brian Flores with the way Miami fired Brian Flores, right? Then the stuff about Stephen Ross comes out, how Ross was trying to bribe him, telling him to lose games, and for each game he lost, he's getting $100K more paid to him. I'm guessing it was under the table. First of all, that's illegal. Stephen Ross, you should be kicked out of the NFL for that and that alone. That's just me. You shouldn't be in the NFL. And then you got rid of a coach that ended up winning more games anyway. Because remember, when those reports were coming out that, oh, he's angry, he doesn't communicate with his coaches, he's not communicating with players, all that was coming out. It was leading people to believe, did he have anything to do with the winning streak? Guess what? I now believe, it is my personal belief, that he had everything to do with that winning streak, and it was to spite Stephen Ross. And he was like, you're telling me as a coach to abandon my integrity of the game to go and lose games to get more money? No, I'm going to do my best job now ever to win as many games as we can. And the Dolphins went on that 7-game winning streak. So with the Dolphins, yes, anything that he's saying against the Dolphins, especially if it's related to the whole Stephen Ross situation, and then I really do believe they fired him because he went directly against the owner. That holds weight. Whatever he's saying against the Broncos, I know it has something to do with John Elway showing up drunk to the interview and whatnot. That holds weight. That's completely unprofessional and disrespectful. In terms of the Rooney Rule, what he's saying with the Giants is that we use them to check off the box that is the Rooney Rule. But that doesn't hold weight since it was checked off before we even gave him his first interview. Because Leslie Frazier and Brian Daboll, once again, were the two first guys that we interviewed for the job. So from the beginning, that box, quote unquote, was checked off. And that's just the flaw with the Rooney Rule, right? We went in depth with this. A very big conversation was held on last night's podcast about the Rooney Rule. And shout out to Fizz Vegas, because on that episode last night, I was saying it was kind of stupid. I don't see how it helps with anything, because you're forcing teams to interview an extra candidate just because of their race, and that doesn't necessarily mean the team is going to hire that candidate, right? But what Fizz brought up to me was that it's literally the only way for African American and other minority coaches or coaching candidates to just get their foot through the door. And that's a good point, because it really does look like it's the only way. However, what the flaw ends up being is you get this right now. Sometimes they don't have a fair shot, right? Sometimes, like with the Broncos situation, they do it as a formality interview and they don't take it seriously. You know, they show up drunk to the interview and whatnot. You get the David Culley situation, which I think is something that should really be looked at, because that man David Culley should have kept his job with the Texans. Entering the 2021 season, everybody and their mom thought the Texans were going to win 0 games. And David Culley went in there and they won the best coaching jobs of the decade that nobody's going to recognize, because it was for a losing franchise and a terrible organization that the Houston Texans are. And he got up to 4 wins. He, Pep Hamilton, they got that man, David Mills, to look like a competent quarterback. They were out here putting up 40 points in a couple games and whatnot. Completely unexpected from the Texans. And everybody knew from the moment Culley was hired, was he going to last? That was a question that was asked. Was he going to last? How many hoops does he have to jump through to keep his job? Because that's just the situation in the NFL right now. So there's definitely something to be looked at in terms of that with Flores' lawsuit. However, when it comes to and once again, I'm only speaking on the Giants because that's what my channel is. But when it comes to that, and when it comes to him alleging that we used him just to check off that box, I think it's false. I do think it's false. I do think he was a legitimate candidate. I do think up until whenever they decided, it was always going to be between Brian Flores and Brian Daboll. And I think the fans knew that as well. But I do hope comes from this case somehow is Stephen Ross being out of the NFL, the Broncos being looked at seriously, and any other team like the Texans as well. I don't know how they could connect it, but they should definitely try and connect the Texans to it. David Culley is another man that lost his job unjustly, just like Flores should not have lost his job. Especially with everything that's come out now. Now you have a bit more clarity. And of course, there is going to be more and more information that comes out about it. And as usual, I don't think the NFL is handling it the right way. They immediately said everything is it's without base, or they said it's without merit. And that's dumb, because you haven't even taken the chance to look at what he's saying. It's like they heard that Flores is suing them, and then they said, all right, put out a generic statement saying it's without merit. You got to actually take a look at it first before you say that. Go through the legal process and whatnot before you say all that. But that's just, I guess, my thoughts on it. I know it was more of a word splurge than anything to put together. But I want to hear your thoughts on it as well, and where you guys stand, whether you agree or disagree with me. Let's have a conversation about it. And of course, we're always welcome to have the conversation on my call-in shows. That was what last night was for, and I do recommend checking that out. But yeah, it's an uncomfortable conversation, but I'm not uncomfortable having it. But it's a conversation that needs to be held, right? But to close it all off, I know, like I said, word splurge. Brian Daboll's suit with the Giants, I don't think holds weight, but the suit with the NFL overall and the topic that he's pushing holds weight, and is definitely something that needs to be addressed. And that's where I'm leaving at. Put your thoughts down below. Like, share, subscribe, and I'm out. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thank you for checking out my channel, The Hub, here on Giants YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you hear every time I put out a video. Like it, share, and subscribe, and I'm out.